So here's a thing that's getting some attention that may not be what it first appears. Pavel Durov, the founder and chief executive of the Telegram app, was arrested in France after landing on a private plane from Azerbaijan. Reportedly, serious charges are being considered against him that could add up to as much as a 20-year jail term. Specifically, it is alleged that Durov didn't cooperate with French security forces and did not properly moderate Telegram, making him an accomplice in crimes such as drug trafficking, terrorism, money laundering, child abuse, and so on. In some places, this is being reported as a massive setback on free speech. Just the latest move of various governments against social media companies that host things they don't like. But others are saying, there's more to this than meets the eye, and Telegram may not be all it seems. So let's have a trawl through this because it's going to be quite a big deal over the next few weeks. Starting with Pavel Durov himself. You might be less familiar with him than you are with other social media company owners, such as Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and so on. He is estimated to be worth about $9 billion. He keeps a lower profile than the Musks of the world, done some interviews, including with Tucker Carlson, but generally keeps that to a relative minimum. The profile he does seem to enjoy putting forward is more of a lifestyle influencer than that of a billionaire tech mogul. On his private channel, he talks about his ascetic lifestyle, his health and longevity, his travels, his sperm donations that he says has led to him having over 100 biological children. And when he posts photos of himself, he's as likely as not to be without his shirt, showing all those healthy and impressive man muscles. Needless to say, he has quite a following of people attracted to all of these very on-trend profile points. He previously used to run the Russian alternative to Facebook, The Contact. The mythology goes that the Russian government demanded Ukrainian user information from The Contact. He refused to comply, leading to The Contact being taken over, and he left Russia. Founded Telegram, now lives in Dubai. Also, rather importantly, with recent events, with French citizenship. So that's Pavel Durov, the short version anyway. But what about Telegram? As you probably know, Telegram is a standard messaging app which hosts channels and groups where large numbers of people can take part. It now has around 900 million users, partly driven by a stated commitment to free speech, made, by the guy who left Russia rather than be forced to comply. Telegram famously has the lightest of light touches in terms of its oversight on what people say or do on the platform. As always, that comes with the benefit of helping people, for example, living under authoritarian regimes, so they have the ability to communicate and organise, but with the disbenefit of becoming a haven for disinformation, extremism of various sorts, criminal and other harmful content. Telegram is able to host huge chat groups, up to 200,000 people at a time, where other apps only permit much smaller groups. Also the sharing of large files, no limits on link sharing, all sorts of things that have made it powerful for a variety of purposes. It is used widely by people in Russia, in India, in Ukraine, also in places like Iran. So at one level, it is the most natural thing in the world to see this arrest as the next stage in the process I was talking about as recently as last week, the showdown that's developing between regulators and tech platform owners. You'll recall that I said things were about to get so bad that I thought one possible outcome would even be that social media apps will end up becoming nationally segregated, and with the EU being the most aggressive regulator to the extent where companies like Apple and Facebook have already started to offer differently configured products of the EU market, you can see how that could happen. So naturally, with France leading this particular charge, it's very easy to see it as the latest escalation in that process, and a pretty big one at that, reckoning extensive jail time for a tech company chief executive. Unsurprisingly, therefore, the most vocal of the free speech advocates have jumped onto this. Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, Kim.com and Andrew Tate, all highlighting this as an attack on free speech. A lot of people resist the logic that says the owners of a platform should be held criminally responsible for what the users of their platform get up to. Leonid Volkov, a former top advisor of the late Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, said that although Telegram had become a useful tool for criminals, Pavel Durov should be released. And he said this: Durov is not an accomplice to the crimes committed by Telegram users. But it has been the case for some time that there have been serious allegations and some well-resourced journalistic investigations into the case that Telegram is not all it seems. And how much that is feeding into the current French investigation is not clear. However, the French channel TF1 reported that the authorities are checking Durov's possible connections with the Kremlin. So, what has been the evidence supporting such a link? I mean, if the claim to independence and credibility is based on a refusal to comply leading to exile, you'd have to think it would be pretty devastating for it to turn out that that was little more than a cover story. One of the indicators some have pointed to is Russia's performative claim to have aimed to block Telegram, which resulted in it saying that, well, actually it turned out to be impossible to do in practice. This came about in 2018, when the Russian authorities demanded information from Telegram, and when it was reportedly refused, they made the move to block the service. Alexei Volin, deputy head of the Russian Ministry of Communications, said that the blocking had been stopped because it was, quote, technically impossible. And yet it's clearly not. Russia had no problems blocking other services they didn't want. For example, the app considered to be the most secure messaging app with two-way encryption by default, Signal, that was blocked, as was Facebook and Instagram. During the 2021 protests in Cuba, Telegram was quickly and successfully blocked, along with the other main messaging apps. So is Cuba technologically better at such things than Russia, do we think? Hence the conclusion that this was about giving Telegram credibility, not seriously trying to stop it. Telegram right now is the main communications channel for the Russian army, used to coordinate action on different levels, to store videos, large files, and so on and so on. Over 71% of the Ukrainian civilian population uses Telegram for getting news. There are at least 50 Ukraine-based channels that each have more than 500,000 subscribers. However, it is formally forbidden to use Telegram in communications in the Ukrainian military. They clearly don't entirely trust its independence. Indeed, on March 25th this year, a bill was proposed in the Ukrainian parliament, the Rada, that would ban Telegram in Ukraine unless the company made certain changes to protect against national security threats. Named as being at issue were the platform's lack of transparency and potential control by Russia. For example, at the end of April, Telegram blocked channels being used to help Ukrainian military and security services. This was explained away as an accident, and they were later unblocked. Obviously, there are some who don't wholly believe that explanation. Also, it's worth noting that although lots of people believe that one of Telegram's features is secure encryption, that is heavily questioned within the tech community. Unlike Signal, by default, chats on Telegram are not end-to-end encrypted, a Telegram user has to specifically start a, quote, secret chat to switch on encryption. And tech writers have said that Telegram's encryption is not of the highest quality, created as it was by Durov's brother, and supported as it is, according to Durov himself, by a very small team of engineers. Others have pointed out that Pavel Durov's arrest came as his private plane landed in France, having been in Azerbaijan. Is Azerbaijan a normal stomping ground for Durov? Not as far as we know. It is, however, the place where Vladimir Putin was just now making a visit. Remarkable coincidences do happen, but it's certainly a rather unfortunate one, if simple coincidence it is. Then there's also the question of where Telegram gets its funding. In 2018, Pavel Durov reported in the documents to the US SEC that he had received $850 million from 81 investors. Some of these named themselves. Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich invested $17 million. Sergei Solonin, founder of the Russian payment system Kiwi, gave $10 million. Russian oligarch David Yakubashvili, sanctioned for his proximity to the Putin regime, also invested big. VTB Capital, a company that is majority owned by the Russian state, bought over $1 billion of Telegram bonds. Alpha Capital, owned by sanctioned Russian oligarch Mikhail Friedman, also bought bonds. Surprisingly, given Durov's status as having fled Russia and resisted its demands, Russia seems to be taking quite an interest in his arrest. The Russian embassy in France said it had asked the French authorities for clarification. The Russian Speaker of the State Duma, Vladislav Davankov, called for Durov's release. So where does all this leave us? If the arrest of Pavel Durov is really just about holding a tech company accountable for the content it hosts on its network, it is unprecedented and a major escalation. And that is possible. I repeat, the conflict between governments and tech firms pretty much guaranteed to intensify because they inhabit spaces that the other have decided they cannot tolerate. The other possibility is that what we're seeing here is testament to Telegram's status as an outlier, that it is now in the process of being exposed as a company for whom free speech is merely a selling point, not actually a guiding value. It could be that we're seeing an explicit line being drawn between platforms that allow bad speech that we don't like versus those that really make no more than token efforts to prevent the worst kinds of criminality and terrorism. The fact is that at the time of shooting this video, those jumping in with hot takes are doing so prematurely because we don't know yet whether and with what the French authorities are going to charge Durov. Calling it a blow to free speech might well be the right call. That battle is coming, but it is premature. But it does seem, with lots of evidence that has been accumulating over the last couple of years, that there really may be more than meets the eye to this situation. It bears careful watching, just not yet jumping to conclusions.